Good evening. Hello, Werner. I don't know. I see you already, and I hope you.
Hello. Good evening to the camerimage. For me, it is 8:30 in the morning.
Yeah, Werner. I think we agreed upon that you want to make a conversation with the audience.
Yes.
I spoke already so much that I don't need to talk anymore, and you are speaking anyway the more interesting stuff. And so I would open the Q&A. Actually, start with the Q&A, and not end with it.
But Peter, and for the audience, I would like to salute you all. I wish I could be with you in person, but not too long ago I had a very serious case of pneumonia, and I'm still having some after effects of it. So I should be careful with long distance travel. But Peter, for you, of course, it is meant to be the two of us together, because it is some sort of a festival, an organization, an event that looks for the combination and collaboration between camera and filmmaker. And we have had many films now. I think we made 28 or so films, maybe only 27. I have not really counted them, but you have to be engaged as well. So it should be actually three of us: the audience, Peter, and me. So we should form a triangle of discourse. Then I think it makes sense. Yeah. All right. Wonderful. I'm very proud that I can be with you, Peter, because cinematographer is always like my eyes. You see, I do not abandon my eyes when I'm doing a film, but in a way, the camera, the cinematographer, adopt the role of my eyes, and I have to work towards creating something that gives a certain fascination for the eyes, because the eyes are always something in between what we are doing and the audience. So it is a complex relationship, and we have a fairly simple relationship because both of us have a physical understanding of cinema. You are very athletic, and I have been athletic, and we have to find the right choreography for what we are doing. Meaning there's a certain movement and a certain choreography of actors and events, and you have to weave in. You are one of the dancers.
Yes, I remember that you're always dancing with the camera together and behind and around the camera. And there were many situations, because I only heard when Werner says to me, then, look at this, pan to the right, there is something going on. Then I look quickly, is there something? Can I catch it with my perspective? Then I pan there, and then I see, for example, it was in the Kalachakra, when we were shooting in the gathering of the monks in Bodh Gaya, meeting all the Buddhist believers and priests, and there was a feast where they one day were allowed to be aggressive, and where they could really fight. So we were this is the only day where the peaceful Buddhists are allowed to let out their aggression. And Werner and I, we were in this crowd of aggressive monks and with beating with wooden sticks. And so when Werner said, "Pan to the light," I was to the left, and I was looking, and then I saw that he was keeping away a guy he tried to beating us. So I panned there, and then I filmed how Werner was fighting with this priest.
Yeah, it was actually a handout of very auspicious gifts. They were thrown into a crowd, and the crowd was large. You have to add, it was about 500,000 faithful. And when you are into mayhem like this, and they pile up, they pile up into high piles. And whenever some pile would heap up, I would say, let's move right into it. Let's plow into it. And we would plow with the camera in it. What I also like, Peter, that you look through the camera with one eye. The other eye that is free is searching around all the time. So it's actually not just one eye that you are using. You are using the free eye as well.
Yeah, actually we have, thanks God, in this case we have 2 parts of brain, or more parts, but 2 parts I am talking about is now the essential brain, the cerebellum, which is the small brain, which is kind of responsible for our balance and for our animal being, kind of the basic things to not to hit something, to not start to stumble. And this part of brain is connected with my left eye. Maybe somebody is a different one. And the artistic, intellectual brain is connected with the right eye. So whenever I was walking like this, I could, nowadays we look on the screen, so it's different. But with the eyepiece, it was that you were looking in. With one eye you saw the film world, and with the other eye you saw the real world. And this was laterally working in that case that you could even run. You saw it yesterday in the Little Dieter Needs to Fly part, when I was running through the jungle behind Dieter, who was kept by the prison, by the people who kept him. And I was running behind him. This was only possible with this technique that my basic brain was controlling where I'm stepping over the trees, and also balancing over the tree, not falling down. And the other one was kind of trying to catch the situation.
Yeah, and Peter, that's something extraordinary, athletic, which coordinates the cinema image and the reality that you see with the other eye. And I remember in Little Dieter Needs to Fly, there was a ditch, there was some water, muddy water, and a tree fallen across it, a log, not very thick, so it was difficult to balance across it. And the extras that we had hired for this morning to take Dieter Dengler captive, take him across this log. And it was something like 10 meters balancing across. And you had organized yourself some sort of a wooden stick that you put into the mud under you. It was a stick about 3 meters tall. And while you were balancing with a camera across this little ravine in the ditch, you would with one hand grab the stick to give you additional balance. So that was extraordinary, because I, without any camera following, almost didn't make it.
Yeah, so the stick is a very simple trick which you can use also when you do handheld camera. that you don't see the steps, because when you're walking, then you're doing from one side to the other this, and the camera does this. But when you use the stick, you can be like on a wire. And actually, I had this stick originally. I made it because I was a coward and I thought that the tigers would jump at us. So it was actually very sharp on one end to protect us against the tigers.
Yeah, but Peter, there's also something else about when you are speaking of sticks in Kalachakra. There's one moment after the event is over. 500,000 pilgrims have left. And there's one meditating monk left. There are all these prayer mats. And it's a gigantic area, all empty. Empty, 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 empty. And a few poles are there holding the
tent. Well, it was a big tent.
Yes, it was some cover against the sun. And we wanted to approach this solitary figure and to show the solitude. Of course, you show the vast area where you have these tens of thousands of empty mats. But to show, you said to me, because there were some poles supporting the tent, you told me, I'm aiming for some of these poles, straight with the camera at it and then around it. And why did you do it? Because the solitude, strangely enough, becomes more evident when you have an object that is singular as an obstacle. It's very mysterious how it functions. And Peter, maybe you can show that to camera students once more. It's towards the end of the events in Bodh It's very mysterious why it functions. Why do you show the solitude and the emptiness more clearly by moving straight at one single pole as an obstacle and then around it? And you still, of course, see the solitary figure sitting there.
I know what you're talking about, but it could be also that it's your ability to see and to discover the mystery in seemingly not mysterious things. Like I remember, for example, one of the most magic events in your films or our films is the scene in Grizzly Man when the camera sticks just on a piece of greenery, on a piece of, there are some leaves moving, and there's just the grass and some branches, and then you discover this magic moment, and you stop the film at that. I mean, the film is going on, but you stop this, and you found this magic moment, and this is something very, I think, unique in film poetry, I would say, not filmmaking, but film poetry.
Yeah, it was actually footage where the protagonist had disappeared, but knowing that he was all alone, he did not switch off the camera. He turns on the camera, does his little act in front of the camera, and then runs away and does something like, according to an American TV series, Starsky and Hutch, whatever, two detectives moving around wildly. And he disappears and he reappears. But somebody who had this footage cut the 15 or 20 seconds in between out, because he said, oh, it's just boring, it's an empty image. And I said, I would like to see it. I have a suspicion I would like to see it. So we reintroduced the 20 missing seconds. And all of a sudden you see just an empty trail, and you see tall grass, and that grass is moving in the wind. And there's nothing there. And all of a sudden there's such a beauty in it. If you point it out to the audience, and my commentary does it, it becomes a sensationally beautiful, strange thing of solitude. And I put it in there. But of course, what is important is not just a singular image, but the context of the images. How do you work towards a moment where all of a sudden an image that has not much in it, that has not much content, becomes something magical. It's a context of the 20 minutes leading to it creates such a magical moment. And you have to see it, and you have to know it, and you have to anticipate. And that's what I like in collaboration with you, Peter, because you understand the 20 minutes before that we haven't even shot yet. So, meaning we have to create the previous 20 minutes in a way that leads to this solitude.
And there's another scene, also one of the most magic ones in this church. I think it's in Thailand. This abandoned church, and there is an empty chair and the television running with nothing on it, and there is a pan from this chair to this empty television screen, but wide enough to see the environment of this abandoned chair. So this is also one of. Do you remember this one?
Yes, exactly. And you have to see it, and you have to activate it, because it means the activity of your camera to catch it, and the timing of it, how long you are showing the empty chair, and then you move, and there's a TV only with technical TV noise on it, dots jumping, I think. Those are the strange moments that you cannot.
Sorry, but to this noise, I want to say something funny or interesting. Lawrence Krauss, the cosmologist who played also in Salt and Fire, and he's a very famous cosmologist and researching the universe. And he taught us that these white dots on the analog television is actually the radiation, the background radiation of the universe. So those are the
bang of the billions of years since the Big Bang. We have this background noise or radiation in the universe.
And we don't see it nowadays anymore, because in the digital television it does not show anymore. So we lost the background radiation of the universe in the new media.
Shall we try to find some questions of the audience, please?
There are some questions, but before I have one. I have a question. Yes. Because we very rarely speak about films and stuff, so that's I will use this opportunity. Because I told the audience that we are shooting, and especially you are the one who is shooting only filming only things which he really needs, and we are not garbage collectors, but we are really shooting only what is needed, and then it will be edited, and so it's a very efficient way of work. But how did you manage to see these 200 hours of what was his name? Jeremy? No, the guy in Grizzly Man, of Timothy.
Treadwell, yeah.
Yeah, but you must have seen hundreds of hours. So how did you do that?
No, I have not, because situation was busy. Let me add something to what you are doing. I see many young filmmakers, and they say, I have collected 850 hours of footage. My heart immediately sinks, because the filmmaker doesn't know what he or she is doing. They do not know. They just keep the camera rolling. And I wish we were back in the times of celluloid, 35mm celluloid, where every second of rolling film costs you about $5. Raw stock, laboratory, answer print, and you just name it. The sense of the value of time, and you focus on the essentials. So when somebody says to me, I have shot more than 600 hours of film, makes my heart sink, and editing since the last 2 years makes it even sink more, because the film industry does not allow that. It's too expensive, it's too time consuming. You will be, and you have to plan your long-term survival in this industry, which is very cruel and very relentless in how it deals with directors, cameramen, you just name it. You should know what you are doing, and then start rolling. Otherwise, you see, the camera, the best of all cameras, where we do not much interfere and keep it rolling, would be the camera in the bank. When you enter the bank, there are 15 security cameras going, and you can wait for 20 years and not a single bank robbery is happening, but the cameras are rolling, they're garbage collecting, and we are not in the business of garbage collecting. Then to the question about Timothy Treadwell's material, it was actually about a little more than 100 hours, but the film was shot very quickly. I remember it, we started shooting on September 5th, which I remember it because that's my birthday. We shot 2 weeks, and it's about half the film. The other half is footage of Timothy Treadwell, which he did over 11 seasons in Alaska among wild bears. And it was now 20th or so of September. And I started editing, and the producer came to me and said, "Oh, this looks sensational. It would be a wonderful film for the Sundance Film Festival. Do you think you can finish it for Sundance?" But Sundance is at the end of January or so. I said, "Oh, easily." And but now the producer said to me, "But there's a problem." And I said, "What's the problem?" "Well, the submission for the festival is within 10 days, on October 1st. So do you think you can put something together?" So I said, "Let me try." The film was edited in 9 days, and I spoke the commentary, and I wrote the commentary. Of course, it was only, let's say, 95% finished in 9 days, because we didn't have music yet. And that took 3 months. And until we had the music, I did some little fiddling, some modifications in the text. And I found one sequence which was not in the film yet, which I was not allowed to use, but all of a sudden I was allowed. So, of course, there was some modifications. And I didn't have time to watch 100 hours. So I had 5 very intelligent young people, young filmmakers, who sifted. Each of them had something like 20 hours of film. They went through it, but very well instructed. And once in a while I looked over their shoulders and I saw this and that, and they had clear instructions. Do not find all the fluffy bear cubs. Find me everything with foxes, because Timothy Treadwell is all of a sudden very personal, very charming, very vulnerable when he's with his favorite little foxes. So they found everything, and this way I discovered that somebody had cut the 20 seconds of nothingness, grass moving slowly in the wind. And I said, "Put it back, I'm curious what it is." Because I had a hunch, I had the feeling there was something that had to be discovered that they had overlooked. So I saw maybe all in all some 10 or 12 hours of the footage of Timothy Treadwell. So sometimes things have to go dramatically fast, under huge pressure of time, under enormous pressure of finances. Of course, we were always under-financed. But Peter, I remember, and it's not only the work with you in all the films we did, in my entire life, I have not had a single hour overtime. Not one. not a single hour of overtime. In Bad Lieutenant, our shooting days were finished at 3:30 in the afternoon or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And everybody was nervous. We haven't shot coverage. We haven't shot coverage. I didn't even know what coverage meant. I know what coverage means in my car insurance. If you drive with me in my car and I create an accident, you are covered for, let's say, 200,000 euros in personal damages and hospital costs. And I asked my assistant, what do they all talk about coverage? And I said, well, a camera shot from wide away, a camera shot circling the actors, a camera shot from a helicopter, a drone from above, a camera shot that close on the eyes, a camera. And I said, I do not need it. I do not want it. It's not what I see in my eyes that should be on a screen for the audience. And then I did not shoot. We shoot some coverage, some reverse shots, and somebody listening to a dialogue, yes, and then interfering in the dialogue. We do that, the essential, yes, essential coverage, but maybe only 10% what everyone else would shoot. And I think it's important between the cinematographer and the director to have a clear understanding. What do we show? What do we cover? How much time do we waste in collecting garbage?
Yeah, we go now. Yeah, we go now to the questions. How do we organize it so that Werner can hear them? With Werner, they get a microphone.
Yes, okay.
I think you see the audience, or do?
Yes.
Yeah. You did so many documentaries and so many fiction work together, and I think you can see glimpses of co-independence in them. But I wanted to ask where is for you the separating line? Were there some philosophy or techniques from documentary that you tried to apply to fiction, but it didn't work out? So where's the difference for you? Both.
Well, I'm very careful to delineate a clear category. What constitutes a documentary? What constitutes a fictional narrative fiction film? For me, it has always been blurred. In particular, when you look at documentaries, they use methodologies that you only would use in feature films. For example, in documentaries, I do casting. I do stylizations. I do dream sequences that I invent. I stylize. I abbreviate certain things. I pronounce certain things that are not there, and they have to be organized. They have to be staged. So, but I do all this for the sake of a deeper illumination for the audience, or if we are very careful, cautious, for a deeper truth in the footage, in what you see on a screen. And because of that, sometimes I'm modifying facts, but in such a way, and I'm quoting André Gide, the French writer, who's wonderfully said once, I modify facts to such a degree that they resemble truth more than reality. And it's a very beautiful way to say it. And what I do also is, my crown witness would be modifying facts for illumination of the spectator. Michelangelo with his Pietà. I use this quite often as my crown witness. When you look at Jesus in the arms of his mother, Jesus' face is the face of a 33-year-old man, tormented, taken from the cross. When you look at the face of his mother, the mother of the 33-year-old man is maybe only 17 years old, a girl of 17. So Michelangelo modified facts. but he did not want to give us fake news or cheat us or defraud us or lie to us. He did it in order to point out a deeper truth, an illumination for us. So that's why I'm crossing over from feature filmmaking into documentary filmmaking. And for me, this delineation, the categories do not really exist. For me, it's all movies. Of course, there are certain exceptions. I made a film on Gorbachev, meeting Gorbachev. You have to stick to the facts. You have to fact check. You have to be precise. You have to approach a film like that in a different, with a different mindset.
May I add something, or not add, but that I think that the general misunderstanding is that people think that documentary is something which happens and it's being filmed, something as it happens, and that fiction film is something which you create and then you film it. But in reality, in documentary, you are also staging things. You are also creating things, as you said. You are casting. You are designing things. You are setting things up. You are rehearsing things, and you are kind of mise-en-scening film things, and also shoot several times when it's necessary. And on the other hand, what we try, or also some people also try in fiction filmmaking, to create a world of the story, and behave within this world as we would be documentary filmmakers. And this is somehow something how the authentic moment or authentic creation of situations happen.
And Peter, there's a very good example, Little Dieter Needs to Fly, with Dieter Dengler in the very opening. And it's very hard. How do you introduce your leading character? How do you start to like him immediately for an audience? A very difficult thing. And we see Dieter Dengler coming in his old car, and he opens and closes the door, walks around, opens and closes the other door, then goes to his, all in one shot, goes to his house, opens and closes the door, opens and closes. And then he explains, well, this may look funny for you, but I love to open and close doors, because when I was in captivity and almost dead, for me, I saw open doors in the skies opening up and horses galloping at me. And for me, freedom means that you can open and close a door on your own. And it was staged. It was staged, but it was not pure invention, because the first time I met Dieter Dengler, when you walk in his house, the first little room where you leave your boots and hang your coat, there were small images, small paintings, about a dozen paintings. And all of them had open doors or half open doors. And the first thing I said to Dieter, that's amazing. You have a lot of paintings of open doors. And Dieter said, what are they? And he looks and he says, yeah, you're right. It's all open doors. I said, didn't you bought it because of that? No, I didn't buy it because of that. It was such a bargain. There's a neighbor who is a painter, and he gave me a special price. He sold 10 of them to me for only $10, $10 each. So I bought it. He never noticed that it was open doors. It was just a bargain. And he said to me, well, when I look at it now, that's remarkable. Yes, it's all open doors. And for me, the real meaning of freedom is that you can open and close a door. So I said to you, Peter, then let's go out, let's shoot, let's stage a scene where he opens and closes the door on and explains about it. It's invented now.
Hi. I think there's quite a range of different topics in your overall filmography, and I would like to know if how do you decide, or how do you know what you want to make a movie about? And adding to that, are there some topics that you didn't get the opportunity to make a film about?
Well, I do whatever comes with the greatest vehemence at me. I've never had a career because I was never planning a career. I just live my life and things are coming at me. Sometimes it's not instantaneously that I make a film. For example, when I was a very young adolescent, age 16, on the island of Crete, where I had been on foot together with a donkey, I saw a valley all of a sudden, and there were 10,000 windmills. And I believed I was insane. And then I realized it was really windmills. And it took 10 years or so, almost 10 years, until this image resurfaces as the key image in a film, in my first long feature film, Signs of Life. So sometimes things are dormant, and then they develop this kind of enormous energy, and I cannot avoid making it now into a film. So it's a question of great moments of illumination and great moments of vehement story that's coming at me. And of course, there are some films that I have never materialized, never made. For example, one film about the conquest of Mexico, seen from the eyes of the Aztecs, where aliens are landing on their shores. It would be a very expensive project, and it couldn't be financed, but it didn't make me nervous. People said, yeah, you should not give up, you should not give up, do not take a no for an answer. But the film industry is relentless. It has some very, very clear laws. If my last film makes $400 million box office domestic in the United States, my next film project, which will cost only $100 million, will easily be financed. It will immediately be financed. But it never happened. I never had a real big success in my entire life. So I said, I'm not going to waste my next 20 years pushing this and trying to do it. In these next 20 years, Peter, I think we did 27 films. So what? I did not spend a sleepless night over all this. And it happens, yes, there are unrealized projects. So what? Instead of that, there were 27 others.
Yeah, I must say that one of the very driving emotional moments and strongness which comes from you is like you are begeistert.
Yeah.
Like you are like a fire enthusiastic for when I would ask you what is your favorite film, you would say probably, I didn't ask you, but probably the one you are making at the moment, because you are such a fire, and you set everybody who is with you on the boat. And if there is, we spoke about low budget films and higher budget, it doesn't matter what budget and which environment, you set everybody around on fire. And this is something very, very unique and necessary for you guys to do it, is one thing. And the other thing is that you, Werner, as I remember, you have always many projects in mind. And you look where is the door open for one, that you make a step more into the door, and then at the end one door opens, and then this project is which you then realize.
Swept away, yeah. You get swept away by a torrent.
Hi, hello.
Yes.
My question is to Mr. Herzog about your documentary work, because I also do documentaries, and in my work I'm not very sold on using documentary. And I would like to ask you about your use of commentary during when in your documentary films. I'm not saying it's bad, because I very much remember the depressed penguin that you did. So I just would like to ask you a question about why do you decide to use the commentary in your documentaries?
Well, there's several schools of thinking, and if you want to make a documentary that has no commentary at all, fine. It's a very clear attitude. You see, deep in my heart, I'm a wild storyteller, and I want to put what I'm doing and what I'm showing into certain context. And I write my own commentaries, and I speak it with my own voice. And my own voice has become something that audiences like. But it's not just a voice, it's a content. The content that people should know. And I'm saying things in the documentary that you could never ever use, for example, in a film by National Geographic. I made a film on volcanoes with Clive Oppenheimer, a volcanologist. And at the end of the film, I'm saying there's a monumental indifference of nature vis-a-vis what is happening on this planet. And all this magma, all the glowing fire wants to burst forth, wants to burst out of the ground everywhere. And now comes this sentence, and it does not care, it's monumentally indifferent to scurrying cockroaches, retarded reptiles, and vapid humans alike. So you will never hear anything like this in any documentary. It's just a wild form of prose, and I enjoy it tremendously, and that's why I do these things, but not never permissible when you do a film for National Geographic. It's impossible.
I want to ask about your collaboration on documentaries. How do you face the ethics of documentary together? What I mean is, like, when I direct the documentary, I always wonder about how close should I come to the subject? How close can I get? How much space should I give him? But what I love with a collaboration with the DOP is, like, they just stick their nose with the camera wherever they see the best image. And, you know, I just want to know how you find your own language. Where's the line, you know?
There is no such thing as a clear line. You have to have it in you. You see, of course, there are certain things that you will not show. You do not show it. Or, for example, in Timothy Treadwell, when he dies, the camera was rolling, but the lens cap was still on the lens, so it only recorded audio. And you hear 6 minutes of him being eaten by a bear, and then his girlfriend being killed and eaten by a bear. Everybody wanted me to have it in the film and make it closely understood for an audience, and I said no. I listened to it and I said no, it will not be in my film. So you have to have a clear understanding what you are doing and how far do you go. And sometimes you step back. There is no uniform rule. Number one, you have to know the heart of men. I mean, also, of course, of women. You have to know the heart of men to know how do you approach a human being. Where is there a line of discretion? You have to find it alone. You can never get the answer from me or from anyone. The ethical questions behind what we are doing are always out there, and you have to better understand what you are doing, and you will do right. I do not worry. Just be a human being, like somebody who is who is automatically liking what you see, liking the people that you see. You approach them, but you do not completely embrace them and kiss them or whatever. There's a certain discretion also. But do it just like a human being. Forget about the camera.
Hello.
Yes.
I wanted to ask you, you talk about having the hunch and all this. Obviously, that's something that you gain as well over time. During your first few projects, how was it when how did you end up developing this hunch? Because I'm sure at the beginning you were also, like all of us, were very afraid to make new projects and we're not sure about some things. So I don't know if you can share with us what it was like when both of you were first starting.
Now I'm a very bad witness or a bad example because I was completely confident from the very first film onwards. Very first moment on, I knew what I was doing and I had the feeling. Of course, I made mistakes and I learned from mistakes, but the confidence was completely in me, and you can sense it even in my very early films. You cannot really learn it. It's sometimes just experience, or sometimes how you as a human being are evolving. How safe do you feel in your thinking, in your approach, in your perspectives? And for me, it is a clarity of vision. I see something so clear in front of me, like on a screening, a film playing. I see an entire film, and I follow what I see. So it's the intensity of the vision that has always given me this kind of confidence. But I've been confident in a completely crazy way. You do not move a ship over a mountain easily, but I did it anyway.
Is there any advice for which you could give to young people because they have the difficulty not to grow up without television and internet? They are influenced by ready-made media. Is there a way for them, a chance to find their own humanity? Or is it kind of impossible nowadays with all the Twitter, Instagram and TikTok?
Of course it is possible. Until today, I do not use a cell phone, for example. I do not want to derive my knowledge of the real world through applications. I do not use GPS when I'm searching, let's say, the house of somebody. I look at a map and I have a pattern of streets and of connections. I have it in my mind through maps. I do it, or I travel on foot. So where you really, really get in the most intense contact with the real world is traveling on foot. And I have done very, very long distance traveling on foot, 1,000 kilometers, 2,000 kilometers. But I'm a lazy bum like everyone else. So I would travel on foot only if there's something existentially important. When my mentor, Lotte Eisner, was dying in Paris and I was in Munich, I would travel on foot to Paris from Munich because I would not allow her to die. It was like a pilgrimage, like an incantation. You must not die, you will not die, I do not allow this. And she was out of hospital when I arrived, so there was some force of a deeper force in this. But traveling on foot is one of the things, but nobody travels on foot anymore, and I'm preaching to deaf ears. But the other one where I should not preach to deaf ears is, and I say that to young aspiring filmmakers, and I say to cinematographers, and I say to actors, to everyone, and I say to architects, and I say to lawyers, something which is essential. Read, 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 read. So that will make you into a filmmaker, and that will give you confidence. You see, a young filmmaker who does not read, you will become a filmmaker, but you will become a mediocre filmmaker at best. So you better read.
Sorry?
Hello. Thank you for being here with us today. I was curious about the process of you two being at location, and I'm imagining you two being within location in your documentaries, especially, where I just imagine both of you being incredibly present and reactive and 360 all the time. But I'm actually curious about also the preparation of planning and like the before of that. How do you get to that level of complete surrender in that space, and how much is actually done before? I understand that you've worked for years together, so it probably gets easier and easier to have a dialogue without even speaking, probably. But even in the beginning, or let's say a project that maybe you're not so sure of how it will go, in which direction, which is probably always. Before that surrender, what's the preparation like? How much planning, how much research? I'm very curious of that part.
I hardly do any research. I'm the one who doesn't like it. I want to have the physical experience. And I have to say I'm really good with locations. I can read landscapes. I can read and understand them sometimes. And this is why I like athletes, like football players who can read the game. There was a great Italian football player in the 1980s, a defensive player, Baresi, who could read the game better than anyone else ever on a football field. And I love these people. They understand space and they know how to move. And I learned a lot as an athlete because I've been playing that sport. So I have the gift, and you cannot learn too much, of reading a landscape, reading the quality of a set, of let's say a location. Once I have this location, I'm utterly unprepared. I come on the day of shooting, I barely know what is happening in the scene. I always have to ask somebody on the set, an assistant, can you read the dialogue for me, because I haven't read the screenplay for a whole year. Can you read it? What is happening here exactly? So,
even you wrote it.
Yes, I wrote it, but I had forgotten already the precise dialogue. I come unprepared, and I asked Peter, come with me, and don't even put the camera in your on your shoulder. Just be with me, just with your eyes, and look around. And I asked the actors to come on the set, let's say an apartment. And we are starting to work out the scene. How would they move? How would they choreograph and move around? And then Peter and I see, it would be great if the camera could move in closer and go around one person at a certain moment. So we develop a choreography spontaneously while we are rehearsing. But I come utterly unprepared, and it has been good because everything is an excitement. Everything has an open end. Everything has to be seen as if we see it for the very first time. And when you see something for the very first time, you have to see the essentials right away. And we only go for the essentials.
And there's also a phenomenon that you are really angstlos, which means fearless, actually of everything, because of the producers, of everybody, because I remember when you made your first multi-million-dollar project, then they said, hey, what do you want to do with this Austrian Zeitlinger? Take a serious cinematographer from Hollywood. And they gave you several names, and then you said, no, you make the film only with Zeitlinger, or you don't make it. And so this is something really also unique, which I actually did not experience with other directors, and I think that many of you also not. That many directors, even you do with them their first films or their first steps. As soon as they get money and they can get somebody more famous or more, I don't know what, then they immediately let you go. And Werner did never do this.
When I watch your body of work, like in retrospective, like all the things you have done, I've got the feeling that in the most positive way to say it, it's like watching a flea circus on Earth, planet Earth, because the feeling of scale is so different, and I think it's because of the part of nature in the movies. So that's one thing you cannot stage when the volcano has the eruption, or when the infinity of Antarctica and the animals, what they are doing, and how do you? Because it's such a big element of all the work you have done, and it's also like, yeah, how do you deal with it? So how do you just?
You mean animals now, for example?
For example, like it's raining and instead of the sun is shining, or the volcano's not erupting, or
I see.
Yeah. So nature as a part, as a protagonist, like this is like my main thing I want to say.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. Cinema is merciless. You have to deliver something, because every shooting day is incredibly valuable. It costs a lot of people to pay. It costs a lot of technical equipment that you have to pay daily. You have to have hotels for your people. You have to have transportation. So if the volcano doesn't erupt, you have to find something else, something that is significant and replaces what you had hoped for and expected. And when you are speaking of landscapes, it sounds strange, but I can direct landscapes, like you can direct actors. And you can see it the way I'm dealing with a jungle. And you can see it how I'm dealing with Antarctica. And you can see it how I'm dealing with the Sahara Desert. So you can direct landscapes to a certain degree. And when it comes to animals, indeed, animals, I can also, to a certain degree, direct animals. And you see it very clearly in Bad Lieutenant with the crazy iguanas that the Bad Lieutenant apparently sees in the fog in the haze of his drug addiction. And all of a sudden the iguanas become utterly crazy. And so you can stage it, you can organize it in a way. But that's what filmmaking is all about. You have to, it's merciless, it is relentless, the pressures are high, and you have to know what you are doing. And you have to know ways out of it and be inventive. When I did, for example, Akira, the Wrath of God, all of a sudden the rapids that come early in the film over-flooded my location. And I wake up in the morning and the river is 5 meters higher than the night before. So I knew it would take 10 days until the water would go down again. So I could not wait for that. So I took the disaster as an element of my story. It was not in the screenplay. I invented something. I took advantage of a disaster for me, made it part of the story, and it works. So you have to become streetwise. You have to become like a thief in the night. You have to be smart. And this is why in my rogue film school, which is not really a film school, it's more like a discourse with young filmmakers. But I teach two things because I had announced it. One is to pick locks, to open safety locks, and I use surgical little tools how to open a safety lock. And the second is forging of documents. How do you forge a shooting permit in antiquated Spanish, signed by the president? And I did that for Fitzcarraldo could not have been shot without massive forgery, because my ship was stopped by military people. They even shot at me. They opened fire at me. I had to stop my ship. And I was asked, where is your shooting permit? I said, it's in Lima. It takes 4 days until I send somebody and somebody brings it back to the jungle. So 4 days later, I bring a wonderful document, stationary, imprinted of the chancellery of the president of the republic, and with watermarks, and in antiquated Spanish language, which is used in such documents. And then at the end, 4 pages, it is signed by Belaunde, el presidente de la República, stamps on it, another stamp next to it by his official of the chancellery, and another signature by the parliamentary president. And I showed it to this officer and a colonel, and I said, "Mi coronel, here is my shooting permit. Read it." And he looked at it, and I said, "Look at the signatures." And he sees El Presidente de la República has signed it, and he salutes to me and he says, "Move on." And the film was possible. So you have to, you see, you have to learn to be smarter than the obstacles. Film is filled with obstacles because it is so multifaceted. You have crazy actors, you have the pressure of finances, you have a thunderstorm where it shouldn't be, you have a flood when it shouldn't happen, you have the pressure of money, you have the technical problems, you just name it, one after the other, and every single element is vulnerable. And if one element doesn't function, the entire scene does not function. So you have to become smart. You have to become smarter than the vicious reality that is against filmmakers.
Hello, Werner. One thing that I've always admired in your films is the way that you look at the world almost as if you're an alien. I think about Lessons of Darkness, for example, or even the example you said before of the film you want to make in Mexico. Have you always looked at the world as if you're an alien? Where does this come from? And how many of your ideas do you think come from seeing the world as if you come from an external place?
Well, there are some examples like Fata Morgana, maybe Lessons of Darkness as well, but I'm a poet, and I'm a poet who lives his life in the reality of today. And you see, I write my memoirs, for example, but the 3 hours before I do my tax returns, I fill out my taxes. And I write 3 hours and I write 15 pages and I have to go to the laundry. And I pick up my laundry and I have to feed the cat. So I'm very much in the reality of life. And you have to be in the life and you have to know where you are in this life. So I'm not really like somebody who looks at the world as an alien. However, and you can see it in all my writing and you can see it in my films, there's a coherent worldview. There's a clear worldview, and the subjects of my films are very, very different. But you can immediately recognize this must be a film by me, even if you didn't see the credits, or even if you have no idea. You switch on your television and all of a sudden you're in the middle of the film. In a minute you would know it is a film by me. You can tell, because there's a worldview and an embeddedness, a connection to the real world, and a loving look at the world, and a curious look at the world. And there's always a sense of awe. And that's exactly what Peter understands with me. Poetry and cinema begins and ends with a sense of awe. And if a cinematographer doesn't have this sense of awe in him or in her, she or he is not going to be my cinematographer.
I have a question for the both of you. It seems like Werner is immune to getting worn off on film projects, but maybe for everyone else, making movies can be very tiring or dragging at some point. Were there any projects on which you collaborated where you were factually worn off after making it, and what did you do to cope with that or deal with it afterwards, reset yourself maybe?
Yeah. Well, I lick my wounds for a while, but there's no way that you can be exhausted or so. It's the projects keep you fresh. The projects keep you running, and the joy of the projects are always more overwhelming than the pain of a project. But I understand it on a deeper level. We are in the profession of illusionists. And if you do illusionists' work one after the other, after the other, after the other, it is not very healthy. So it's good to do other things in between. I have staged operas. I'm a fairly good cook, particularly when it comes to meat, a real good steak. I'm good at that. And I cook for friends, or I travel on foot, or I do things that are maybe unusual, traveling on foot for a while. And of course, there's one thing that eludes you. I'm writing. I've always been a writer from the very beginning, and at the moment, since I have just written 3 books, I keep saying, I'm a writer, I'm a poet, but a poet who eventually, coincidentally, also makes films. So I try to point out, do not forget that probably my films will live longer, that my writing will live longer than my films. I'm very much convinced of that. So I try to spread out things that I'm doing to avoid being the illusionist all the time.
You said the film industry is relentless, and I think this applies even more to distribution than to actually making films. And I wanted to know if you have some forgery tips or methods for distribution rather than making.
Yeah, you're pointing at the real problem. Thanks God, it has become easier to make films. You can shoot a film on your cell phone, and I mean of cinema quality, or very small cameras, high caliber 4K digital cameras with very good sound outlets, and you can edit your film on your own laptop at home. So it has become much, much more inexpensive. The real problem remaining is streaming and the platforms and distribution and YouTube, and you just name it. I don't have an answer yet, because things are shifting in a massive way. We have seen monumental shifts in the last 10, 15 years towards streaming. But I'm somebody who tries to be self-reliant. For example, when nobody would produce my films, I rolled up my sleeves and I worked in a steel factory. I worked all the night shift in a steel factory as a welder. During the day I was in school, but I earned money for making my films and I became my own film producer. I sent poetry and texts, a stack as high as this of texts when I was 21, 22 to the best publisher in Germany. And they sent it back to me with one of these standard letters that it didn't fit in their program. I knew they would never publish it. And instead of going to the next 20 publishers, I founded my own publishing house. And I published 3 books on my own. And the German young filmmakers created their own film subsidy law. We created our own distribution system. At the time, of course, of celluloid, the Filmverlag, the Autoren, the authors created their film distribution, which was working for a while, not very well, but it kind of survived for a while. So what I'm thinking nowadays is that we have to look into possibilities to create our own streaming platform, maybe collectively, because it's a big technical thing and not easy to maintain. So you probably have to gang up with 10 or 20 other real good filmmakers who are burning, who really have some very, very good material, and found your own distribution system. That's my first answer that comes to mind. But otherwise, this is all too new, and I'm trying to explore what is going on. I'm trying to explore YouTube, and I had a very big success with a program about texting and driving, because so many accidents have happened and fatalities have happened because people while driving do texts and they don't look at the road anymore. And it has been phenomenally successful, and it was only YouTube. And I'm also looking into possibilities of virtual reality. So I'm always at the forefront of what is going on, and I'm curious. Of course, virtual reality is not the thing for cinema. You cannot tell stories in virtual reality. You have to create states, but not stories. It is more stasis than movement dynamic of a story. But ultimately, if you are outside of mainstream, if you are outside of the film industry, if your creations do not fit in there, you have to become self-reliant, including distribution.
Okay, I have a question about your film's titles. I find them very poetic and epic, and I was wondering if it is that the title pops up in your mind, or it is a deep creation process. And the second part of the question is that it happens in the beginning of filmmaking or in the end.
You're speaking of, I did not understand acoustically the beginning. Was it a titles or what was it?
Of your films. They're very poetic and epic. And I'm just wondering, it just pops up in your mind, or is it a deep creativity process?
No, there's no creativity in any of my films. I see a film like somebody sees a film in a projection room. Suddenly I see it materializes. And I only have to write down, like copying the dialogue that I hear, describing the landscapes in which they are moving. that there was nothing like creativity. I'm just copying. I see a whole film.
The question was the title of the film, the poetic titles. Yeah, but this was anyway a very good answer.
No, that's why I didn't understand clearly enough acoustically. Titles, yes, you have to be good with titles like Land of Silence and Darkness, something like that is really beautiful. And or for books, Conquest of the Useless. Or now my memoirs have a beautiful title, Every Man for Himself and God Against All. So you have to come up with something that people immediately get interested in, get stuck. Yeah, it's important, very, very important. Find a good title.
Thank you.
May I?
Yeah.
First of all, thanks for being connected here with us. And I want to say that I really appreciate your answer to the misunderstood question you've just said. But my question is, like, I watched your Gorbachev interview a couple of years ago, and what shocked me the most is that you portrayed solitary, lonely man, perhaps before all the world realized that such an influent and very popular person was actually left alone by two, let's say, hidden blocks from the mainland Russia and the other eastern countries in Europe. And my question is, how did you get close to this feeling, the feeling of loneliness that was featuring, in a way, the personality of Gorbachev, before then all the world realized what you actually, in a prophetic way, portrayed?
Well, you sense it immediately, and you see it. It's irrevocably there, and you better deal with it. And of course, there was a great respect from my side and sympathy from my side for Gorbachev, which you also sense, because Gorbachev was the architect of the reunification of Germany. But since you are Polish, you should not forget that Gorbachev, when the Warsaw Pact came apart and the Soviet Union came apart, he unilaterally, without guarantees from NATO not to move close to Russia, unilaterally removed 400,000 Russian soldiers from Polish soil and 5,000 tanks. He single-handedly moved them out, 400,000 soldiers, 5,000 tanks. So in that respect, Gorbachev has been a figure that has also done something remarkable for Poland. And I see all this, and I do have this great respect. And if you don't have this great respect for a figure like him, you better don't make a film about him.
Thank you. The interview itself was very inspirational for me, and now, after this answer, it is at least twice as inspirational. Thank you very much.
But I have an objection. I never I never conducted interviews. It is not interviews. I said to Gorbachev in my first meeting, you're not meeting a journalist. I have no catalogue of questions. You have to deal with a poet. So, are you ready? And he said, yes, we are ready.
Yeah, I remember.
Never an interview, conversation.
Thank you.
Yeah, I must say that Werner never comes with a paper or something. He always comes to the people talking to without anything, just with his person. Is there any other question?
Yes, please. Hello. My question is, have you ever been confronted with a situation where the protagonist you were working with was maybe getting attached or dependent on the work, and how did you deal with this responsibility as a filmmaker?
Attached, can you describe what you mean by that?
Maybe sometimes you make a film in which you shed light on some problems and you help a protagonist, and sometimes they might get dependent on this help. How would you deal with this responsibility?
It has never happened in my life, and you have to see very clearly, filmmaking is not a social service. Filmmaking is something which follows different rules, but I think I know what you mean. Something like this has barely ever happened. It happened actually to some degree in the film The Enigma of Caspar Hauser. The protagonist was Bruno S., abbreviated S. because he had a catastrophic childhood and youth, was locked away in lunatic asylums and in prisons and in correctionals as a juvenile delinquent. His mother was a prostitute who wanted to get rid of him, and his mother beat him so savagely when he was 3.5 years old. He actually spoke, but he lost speech, and his mother put him away in a lunatic asylum for retarded and insane children. So a very delicate case. And Bruno, for example, got very, very much involved in his role in all this. And I said to him, Bruno, I have to take the screenplay away from you, because just show up in the morning for breakfast and we'll go together on the set, and then we'll talk about the next scene and we'll rehearse it and we'll do it. Don't get too deeply into the figure, into the role, into the cinema that we are doing. And it was very healthy. And besides, it was very healthy because he, having the screenplay, would start to rehearse on his own. And it was just awful. It was so awful that I confiscated the screenplay from him, and I had to remove him from the script, and I had to bring him on location almost unprepared. Bruno, you have to disassociate the catastrophe of your childhood, disassociate it from your role, from what we are doing right here. And it was good for him because it improved his situation. People in the street in Berlin recognized him, and they dragged him in the pastry shop, and the pastry baker gave him the best piece of cake, and barber next door gave him a haircut for free, and they liked him. And so his involvement into a film project was left to the aftermath of it, where the positive effects for him started to set in. And sensing that, you have to be careful and keep your actors and keep your people with whom you are dealing at a certain distance. It is healthy that way.
Thank you.
Hello. This is maybe the similar question, but I wanted to ask that I feel like maybe some filmmakers or co-workers have some sort of expectation of what kind of director you should be or where you should go. For example, when you go to the jungle, people may expect that they will have some sort of comfort or something like that. So my question is that how do you follow the vision but also keep the relationships in a good form, so you can form one body that can shoot the movie?
Yeah, well, that's a very intense question, and we could spend a whole day on talking about that. When I take people with me to the jungle, I explain to them very, very clearly, there will be no shower, there will be no water but the river. You have to brush your teeth with the river water. You will be fed well. There will be mosquitoes. There will be unpleasant things. You will have rainfalls like you have never seen in your life. So I really explain it to them very clearly. And they say, wonderful, and we'll do this adventure with you. But within a week on location, they're all disgusted that it rains too much and that there are too many mosquitoes. So you have to keep them on board, and you have to, what keeps everyone on board is the caliber of your work. You see the substance, the beauty of your work, and they sense it every day. The rain and the mosquitoes were terrible, and the mud was terrible, but what we did was wonderful. So when that prevails, you carry them along with you from beginning till the end of a film. All right, Peter, I think we should finish it here.
Maybe one last question or two last questions.
One last, yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Hello, thank you so much for being with us. I wanted to ask, as you teach a lot of young people as well, what do you think that we are lacking in this era? I don't know, I'm reading a book about our lack of wild instinct now, and how we are not connected anymore with nature. I don't know, like if you are raising a child now and you want for someone to create these amazing films, I don't know, what would you say we are really lacking in this era?
Well, there are certain dangerous elements, and that is that we are living too much in a secondary level of life. The media, we are living off YouTube, we are living in the context of the social media. And we have 1,200 friends and 1,200 thumbs up for something. And it's all not real friends. You have never seen them. You don't know if the thumb up is meant really for real or not. So you have to probably use the social media, use the internet. It has glorious possibilities. But try to do all the essentials in a different way. And that means in real life, in the real world, with real experiences. And a part of the real experiences, the imaginary experiences by reading. Read poetry, read everything you can get hold of. That makes a more dignified and more intense life. And of course, if you have a chance, go out into some wilderness and try to understand what we are made for, that we are part of nature and not above nature. And my own children, I have taken out to Patagonia for camping out in the middle of the wilderness, or Alaska, without a tent, without anything, being dropped by a small amphibious plane which will pick us up 6 weeks later. And 6 weeks later you are alone, but you have no tent, but you have fishing gear, and you have a hammock, and you have a few tools. So you have to live off the land. You have to find berries and mushrooms and catch fish. So, and it is so remarkable that my older son, with whom I did that, is still 20 years later, still is living from that experience in a way. He has made a sort of environment for him that incorporates this deeper understanding where we belong. So, but that's a philosophical question. It's not a question for movie makers, but we are human beings, and we better expose ourselves to the real life. And I mean, to whatever might be ugly, and it might be crazy, it might be grotesque. And this is why sometimes I'm zapping on television channels, because I want to know in which world we are living. Sometimes I watch WrestleMania just to see in which world are we living, what do all the people want to see. So I watch the Kardashians, not because I like it, but I want to see in which world I'm living. and you should approach it that way, and I'm sure you will do fine. And there's wonderful possibilities in Poland. You just go out and experience the beauty of your country. All right. Thank you very much and good night. For me, the day is only really beginning. And Peter, thank you very much for doing this.